Today, I'm going to analyze a short story wrote by Philip K. Dick, published in 1954, titled Adjustment Team. It is a soft science fiction which focuses on some topics like human psychology and social science like humanity. It also followed a three-act plot structure, as it allows reader to follow the plot easier and is especially good in telling a short story. First, the story opens with the conversation between a clock and a dog. According to their plan, the dog will summon the protagonist on 8:15 so that a car will bring him to the office and allow him to be there before 9 o'clock, which is the time of the adjustment begins. However, the summons is late. Then, the situation is worsening. After arriving at the office, there is something strange. The building turns out to be a ghostly gray. The protagonist walk in and find that everyone in the building is completely motionless. They even turn to ash as a slightless touch. Nevertheless, he also sees a man in lab coat, holding machines and equipment on his colleagues. They rush after him, shouting things like he's not being de-energized. Later on, the protagonist approaches his wife and tells her everything. They return to the building together. But the office now is completely normal, so his wife leaves. However, there are actually some difference in this office, as the boss is being younger and things are altered. Afterwards, the adjustment team bring the protagonist to their chamber and thereby explain everything to him. Actually, they are part of organization that keep track of things, nurturing things in a direction that is positive for civilizations. At the confrontation, the protagonist agreed to keep the secret and in return to keep his memories safe. Finally, the story ends by the visits of a salesman and stop the argument between the protagonist and his wife. There are rooms left for the reader's imagination about the ending, whether the adjustment team is about to do something again. The writer did not state the time in the story clearly, but I believe it's in the near future. As the living style in the story is similar to our present day, they have job positions like officemen and insurance salesmen. It is also likely to be in a city, where there are commercial buildings and public transport. These elements can help better involve the reader throughout the story, as the reader are more familiar with the setting, which allows them to have realistic imagination for the story development. Third-person narrator is used to describe different aspects of the story, which is effective to use in explaining different details. Reader can know the feelings about the protagonist and also understand the operation flow of the adjustment team. This narrator method provides a more comprehensive view of the story, which helps the reader to grab the main point easier. In terms of human nature, the story adjustment team also stresses heavily on the topic of free will and determinism. As the adjustment team is an organization that has the right to erase people's memory and correct their wrong act. Based on the case, should people still respond for their action? Are they still having the free will, or their life is just depends on others' control? In the story, the protagonist is likely to be a libertarian, as his belief in self-ownership and free will. That's why he fights so hard for his right to protect his mind and reject being fully controlled. For human relations, we see the protagonists are following the Maslow hierarchy of needs structure. Except from fulfilling his safety and physiological needs, he also wants to achieve higher form of human needs, which is to know more about this world and seek the truth behind all these strange events. From the point agents of socialization, we see some details of adjustment team towards their group structure, as their position like summoner, agent, clerk, and the leader. The adjustment team has their own norm as well. They believe by learning from the history and changing their human behavior based on a planned routine, it is likely to avoid the war and therefore protect the human race. It also helps to show the tendency that humans crave for harmony. For team development, the protagonist is also showing some spirit of skepticism, which is the advocate of the philosopher Descartes. You see, the protagonist is keep asking himself questions. He doesn't believe in his wife about his just having illusion caused because of the fear to his boss. He knows something is wrong and he needs to know the reasons. That's why he's also being so active to ask the old man tons of questions. Idea of social contract advocated by the philosopher Thomas Hobbes. are also present in the story, as people are sacrificing their freedom in return for the protection from the adjustment team, who is likely to play the ruler's role. It reflects that the humans are developed to be more skillful in protecting themselves at that time. For the technology, advanced technology is adopted by the adjustment team, as the machine and equipment are advanced enough to erase people's memory and reconstruct their mind. These elements is also making the plot more interesting. For dialogue and language, they were used appropriate throughout the entire story, as they were short, concise, and setting fits, so that the reader can enjoy the plot and quickly grab the main idea of each scene. Terms used are also suitable to reflect the character personality, like the anxious of the protagonist and the calm of the old man, which allow reader to understand more details of the character. Nevertheless, the protagonist is an everyman. He goes to work just as millions of the others do. This similar characteristic more or less increase the reader's sense of involvement, which is good to keep their attention continuously while keeping the story realistic to everyone. It's the end of my presentation. Thank you.